My wife cheated on me and my daughter sided with her. Now, years later, she's begging me to pay off her student debt. I haven't seen my wife or daughter in about 5 years because, well, we were in dire financial straits. Luckily, I received an incredible job offer in another country that essentially had me contracted to be away for about 5 years. What I didn't expect upon my return was finding out my wife had been unfaithful. She didn't even let me know she had fallen out of love with me. But what really broke my heart was my daughter, whom I thought would always be by my side because she was always a daddy's girl. Turns out, she sided with her mother, telling me she always deserved better. That hurt. Being betrayed isn't what I expected to discover when I returned home for the first time in 5 years. I was so glad to see my wife and my daughter, who was 13 when I left. Video calls could never make up for the fact that we hadn't seen each other. In the 5 years I've been away, I've only seen my wife and daughter twice. It hurts when they have to leave. But what can I do? I had no choice but to leave so we could all have a better future. But it turns out it would have been better if I hadn't returned because they don't even appreciate it. They're the most ungrateful people I've ever met. It's like they're different people from the ones I left behind. To give some context, I left the country 5 years ago because I received an irresistible job offer that was going to help us a lot financially. My daughter was born premature and had problems with some of her internal organs, especially her heart. When she turned 10, she needed surgery or else she would die. At that time, I was working as an office administrator and my wife was a waitress. We struggled financially because insurance didn't cover some of the expenses. We gradually accumulated debt and borrowed from friends and family. Things got worse when I got laid off. Our marriage was on the rocks and we had a sick daughter. Those years were some of the most depressing of my life. I had no hope that our situation would change. But luckily, my daughter's surgery went well and she hasn't had any heart problems since. When she stabilized, we were very happy, but only for a short period. Then we realized we had a huge debt and I struggled to find work. My wife was very resentful towards me and sometimes I felt like divorcing. I know she also wanted to leave me, but she stayed and I'm very grateful for that because I feel like I failed her as a husband. And just when I thought things would only get worse, they got better. I got a job abroad with an international company, a 2-year contract with no vacations. The money was good, better than what I earned here, but the problem was that it was far away and I was going to have to leave my wife and daughter. We talked about it at length and we decided that I would go work to pay off the debt. Maybe if we had some extra money, we could invest or start a business to ensure some income. I worked hard while working almost every hour of the day. I had my regular job and also worked shifts at a cafe near my house when they were short-staffed. I managed to pay off some of the debts, but then we had a problem with the place where they were staying and they had to move. My daughter had to change schools and my wife needed a car because the area they moved to was very remote. So after those 2 years, I accepted a 3-year extension. I managed to have them come to visit me twice and gradually the situation started to stabilize a bit. A year ago, I got promoted and I earned so much money this year that I decided it was time to come home. Thanks to my years of experience and my contacts, I was able to find a job as a manager at one of my company's branches. The salary is still good and there are benefits, so I can say I'm in an even better financial situation than I was 5 years ago and I'm very glad for it. My wife doesn't have to work anymore. We've thought about renting a small shop and having her sell homemade goods to keep her busy. My daughter is doing very well in school. She's 17 and one of the top students. She hasn't had any health problems in years and the fear of being called at any moment has finally disappeared. It's been a week since I've been home and everything is a mess. I have no words. I don't even have words to express the disgust I feel for my family. I had to move to a foreign country, work those crazy hours, and simply survive because of them. I worked so hard to have enough money to support them. And this is what they do to me. And my daughter's only response is that she supports her mother and was tired of hearing her mother cry at night. She's incredibly happy that her mother has now found someone who truly loves her. Well, I guess my sacrifices weren't love at all. But I'm getting away from the main point, which is what exactly happened. My wife Anna and I got an earlier flight than planned and I arrived before. I wanted to surprise them and since I already had the address, I showed up unannounced. They were both so happy to see me. I had some food and then went to sleep because I was very tired. When I woke up, my daughter had gone to school and my wife was home. She made me breakfast and then went shopping. I went back to sleep because I was still a little tired. When I woke up again, I decided to take a walk. When I was in the park sitting down, I saw a recognizable head of hair. My wife is 42 years old, but her hair is very gray, and it has always been, even when I met her. It's very, very gray and she doesn't dye it anymore. I saw a couple inside the car in the back seat, hugging or kissing, so I approached to see exactly what was going on. only to see my wife half-naked with another man. I just opened the door and dragged him out and threw him to the ground. Then everything was a blur. He tried to talk to me, but I pushed him away and went back home without saying anything. When I got home, I sat in silence and then the tears started rolling. They consumed me completely. The anger, shock, and disgust were overwhelming for me. I mean, guys, I love that woman. I won't lie, it's been hell without her, and this is what she does. I simply couldn't comprehend it. My daughter came home and found me sitting there, a wreck. She asked me what was wrong, and I told her nothing, assuming the little traitor knew nothing about this. I didn't want to stress her out. Her mother came home that same night while Nadia was sleeping. I was sitting in the living room with the lights off and she didn't see me as she tried to sneak into Nadia's room. "We're not going to talk about this," I told her. We argued for a while and she tried to justify what she had done. Her pitiful excuse was that she missed me and felt so disconnected from me because I was always away working. I told her that everything was for her, that's why I did it, and it was hell for me too. Then she told me she just didn't love me anymore, that she wanted Garrett, her new boyfriend. She was so calm when she said it, there was no remorse in her voice, so I yelled at her to get out of here. "Dad, please," Nadia said. I told her I wouldn't stop and that I wanted that woman out of our lives. Then she told me it was me who had to leave because my wife wants Garrett, not me. Yes, my own daughter said that. I asked her how she could say that, being I was her father. She said her mother deserved someone who would be there for her. When she said that, she was yelling as if I wasn't her father but some random intruder. That night, my heart broke and I had nothing to say, so I left. I haven't spoken to either of them since then, and the only communication was when my wife signed the divorce papers. I don't know what to do. Both my wife and my daughter hate me, and what have I done to deserve this? A few months later, I gave her what she wanted, which was the divorce. I decided not to make a big deal out of it and to completely exit their lives. If they didn't want me, I wasn't going to make noise about it. One thing being away for a long time has taught me is that there's never a need for violence and people make their own choices. Now my family has chosen they don't want me, so who am I to fight against them? My daughter was on her mother's side when we divorced. She wouldn't look me in the eye and wouldn't answer text messages. Her mother didn't even feel ashamed of what she had done. She seemed relieved to be done with me. During this divorce, we didn't tell anyone the reason for our divorce for privacy reasons. I've just returned to town and am new at work. I just want the transition to be smooth and not be part of office dramas. Besides, my daughter begged me not to tell anyone what her mother did. It was the first and only time she spoke to me during this ordeal, and after I agreed because my heart is soft and I can never say no to my daughter, she ignored me again. I let them keep the apartment and I let her keep the car, but everything I worked hard for stayed with me. I was smart enough to ensure she'd never have a right to claim any of my assets. When I found out what had happened, I transferred everything to my brother's hand. My lawyer was also very good and made sure they got absolutely nothing. It's been 2 months. I've found a house far away from them and I'm doing well at work. I'm planning to use my money for something. I have to cut all ties with them. They're strangers to me now, and at the end of the year, I'll see if I leave the country. Of course, I have my brother, my mother, and my father, but I can't get used to this place anymore. I hate it for everything that has happened. Update number 2, my daughter contacted me after they made my life impossible. Well, I thought we had actually agreed to keep the reason for the separation a secret so we could all move on with our lives, but boy, was I wrong. My wife and daughter were very resentful because they didn't get any of my assets. So, without my knowledge, they started lying about me so people would turn against me. I realized several family members never responded to my messages when I texted them, and it seemed strange. When I went to my brother's house, his wife seemed a bit off. That's when I knew something was wrong. It was when the divorce was finalizing and they had lost their right to my assets. I asked my brother what the hell was going on, and he said it wasn't anything good. I know my brother and I realized he was lying. So, I probed until he told me what was going on. Apparently, my wife and daughter were telling people that I had left because I had been emotionally abusive. They also said I hadn't paid their bills when I was abroad and suspected I had another woman outside of marriage. I was surprised to hear these absurd rumors. Of course, my brother didn't believe them but said his wife and many family members did. When I found out, I had no choice but to break my silence. I told anyone who would listen that she was the one who cheated on me, but no one believed me or thought it was justified. So now I'm a pariah in the family and everyone hates me and thinks I'm a bad person for leaving them with nothing. I've only had to pay Nadia's child support, and that won't be for much longer because she'll be 18 soon. Apart from that, I haven't had any contact with her or her mother, and I'm quite content. Update, several months later. Hi, guys. I know you wanted an update. I'm holding up. I have no one to trust in my life, but, well, as I said, I'm holding up. Yesterday, no one came to see me in my office. It was definitely a surprise, and I didn't think she would want to see me again after she sided with her mother. However, she came yesterday to ask me for money. I stopped paying child support months ago, and as soon as I did, I blocked them both. She told me she had called me, and I remembered seeing a missed call from a private number, but I didn't think much about who could have called me. I thought if it was important, the person would call me back. She told me she had judged me too quickly. When she found out her mother was cheating, Anna had felt lonely, and Garrett had helped her with things I couldn't do from home. He had even become a father figure in her life. She had been thinking about the situation for a long time and wanted to have a relationship with me immediately. I suspected why she wanted to fix things with me, even though her mother hated me. I asked her if her mother even knew she was here, and she scoffed, saying her mother wouldn't even notice she was gone. I asked her why, to which she replied that her mother was too focused on work. After all, she was the only breadwinner in the family. She sighed, and I didn't feel sorry for her. It was she who chose her mother and didn't stop at that, even going so far as to ruin my reputation in the family. They still look at me weird when I see my relatives apart from my parents. My relationship with much of the family is non-existent. What they said, their lies, absolutely infuriated me. I would never hurt them. I gave her a peaceful divorce and even kept supporting Nadia for as long as the law required. Nadia told me she was going to be honest about it. They were struggling to make ends meet, and she didn't believe her mother would be able to pay for her university. I asked her if that was my problem, and she replied that I wasn't her father anymore. She's over 18, so she's going to have to make a plan for herself and leave me out of it. I was late for a meeting, so I paid for a taxi and told her to leave me alone because she was no longer part of my life. You guys must know where I'm coming from. I trusted that both of them had my back while I was out there working hard for them. Instead, they showed their gratitude by hiding such a secret. I wish I had exposed Anna when I found out about her affair and let people know just how shameless she was. Instead, she ruined my reputation and I lost all credibility. Now Nadia wants to come crawling back because she needs my money. I'm not making the same mistake of trusting her again. Once my trust is broken, it's very difficult to regain it. She can lie in the bed she made with her mother. Update. She's been begging me to pay for her university, and well, I agreed to see her again. If there's one thing about Nadia, it's that she's persistent and never gives up. This has saved her life on countless occasions, and she has a spirit that simply refuses to die and won't give up without a fight. When I returned from my meeting, she was gone. But she left a letter. She apologized for showing up at my workplace and asked me to meet for coffee and chat. She said she wanted to reconnect with me as a father, and it wasn't just about her struggle to get money for tuition. She left a number for me to call. I sat with the letter for a few days, holding it, folding it, unfolding it. I only had one chance. She seemed very grateful when I gave her the opportunity and promised not to squander the money. So, for an hour, we talked and caught up on life. She was still studying well and had no health issues. She had been accepted to 3 universities but had decided on one in particular. She spent most of her time alone because her mother was always working. Anna was no longer with Garrett and things hadn't worked out. Garrett hadn't supported her during her financial struggles. As a reaction, I felt a sweet satisfaction knowing that her deceit had been in vain. She was undoubtedly in a worse situation than when she started. She sent her daughter to ask me for help. Yes, nobody was sent by her mother to ask me for money, although she denied vehemently that she was. She can't think for herself, she lets her mother think for her. Her mother always wanted her to go into business, not medicine. Now she's trying to win my sympathy. I decided to indulge her and see how sincere she was. I told her I would consider helping her and would call her when I made a final decision. I had spoken to my accountant who was able to rearrange some things and determined that I could afford to pay for my daughter's full university tuition. The next day, I saw her again and gave her the good news. She was ecstatic and hugged me before I could finish. I told her she could do it, but I only needed one thing from her. That was when she said she would do anything to go to university. I asked her to tell the truth about why her mother and I got divorced. The whole family was tired of being treated like a bad person and I needed to clear my name. If she did that, I would pay for her tuition. What she asked of me was difficult. Simply forgiving her after she betrayed me and sending her to university for free. Who's to say she's not waiting to abandon me again? I told her if she did that, it would prove her loyalty was with me. She supported her mother and threw me under the bus. Now it's time to fix it. But listen to this, she said no. She's not going to do it. She got up and left angrily and came back a few minutes later, telling me she needed me to take her home. Yeah, right. I gave her money for a taxi and told her to leave. I knew she wouldn't. I knew she would continue to be loyal to her mother. She lied when she said she cared about fixing things between us. I'm scared at how quickly she's starting to resemble her mother and act like her too. There's no trace of that sweet girl I left behind when I went abroad. She's become totally corrupted, just like her mother. I won't tolerate it. I called my brother Aaron while checking on her, and her heart was beating too fast. She was having trouble breathing. The worst-case scenario crossed my mind, and there was no way her heart would start beating again after so many years of being healthy. My brother interrupted me and said we needed to go to the hospital right away. The rest of the family followed us as we raced against time. We arrived in record time and she was attended to within seconds. Then there was a long wait while all possible scenarios ran through my mind. Maybe this was happening because of me. Maybe it was all my fault. I shouldn't have exposed her. Finally, the doctor came to update us on her condition. Well, she was fine. She had a very severe panic attack. Everything was fine with her heart. I called Anna and texted her to tell her what happened, but she didn't even respond. I got Nadia discharged and took her to my house, where she underwent some tests and rested. The next day, she was fully awake and feeling better. The first thing she said was, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything I put you through." Her mother has always bossed her around and sent her pretending to ask for university tuition when she needed the money for something else. I forgave her. She's my daughter, after all, and I told her she was more than welcome to stay with me because I don't think her mother's house is safe now. She's been staying with me for a few months now. Her mother hasn't even tried to find her. I can see she's hurt, but maybe that's what she needs to let go of this toxic person who is supposed to be her mother. She's lucky? Well, luckier than me. I've been married to that vile woman for over 2 decades and I didn't see that she chose for herself. And I'll pay for the tuition. I forgive her.